Hello and welcome to the MBM podcast, where you'll learn to master the business of yoga. MBM is a proud part of the Wander Barn Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Amanda Kingsmith. I'm a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, a yoga business coach, and a total business geek. Here at MBM, you'll learn everything you need to know to create a sustainable yoga business by learning from myself and guests from around the world about how they built their yoga businesses, and about how you too can become a successful yoga teacher, studio owner, and much more. All right, let's dive in. Hey friends, I just wanted to pop in and talk a little bit about MBM Behind the Scenes. When I entered the yoga world as a teacher, I was surprised by how many yoga teachers were struggling with the business side of yoga. And that's why I created MBM. MBM helps yoga teachers and studio owners become entrepreneurs. It helps you to go from surviving to thriving with your yoga business. I am on a mission to change the yoga industry, to teach yoga teachers and studio owners about the business of yoga, and to help you feel more confident, successful, and abundant. After releasing hundreds of podcast episodes, I want to create content that dives deeper into helping yoga entrepreneurs thrive and elevate their businesses. This is where MBM Behind the Scenes comes in. Each week, you will get bonus content from the weekly guest or myself, diving deeper into how you can take the teachings and apply them to your business. This podcast is designed for yoga teachers and studio owners who are ready to take it to the next level. If you enjoy MBM and have been looking for an affordable way to learn more, this is it. For the cost of 2 lattes per month, you will get never-before-heard content that you can't access anywhere else that will give you tangible ways to dive deeper into your yoga business. If this sounds like something you're interested in, let's dive in. Head on over to patreon.com/MBM yoga and sign up to get behind the scenes now. Once again, that's patreon.com/MBOM yoga to get all the exclusive behind the scenes content. I'll see you there. Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the MBM podcast. I am so excited that you're joining me for today's episode of the show. This episode is brought to you by Offering Tree, an all-in-one, easy-to-use online business platform that I've been working with for years. If you're looking to save time, energy, and money, check out Offering Tree. And don't forget to grab your special discount at offeringtree.com/MBM. And I'll make sure that later on in the episode, I tell you more about why I love Offering Tree and why I think it's a fabulous software option for yoga teachers. But before we get there, let's meet today's guest. This week on the podcast, I am joined by Berenice Miles. Berenice is a yoga teacher based in France, and after having her own personal healing journey with yoga, she decided that she wanted to help other people heal too. Of course, when the pandemic hit, Berenice was forced to pivot her yoga business to an online form, and she decided to create a YouTube channel teaching yoga for beginners. And her YouTube channel has done quite well. She's had quite a bit of a success with it. So in this episode, Berenice shares how she was able to overcome her fears of going online, actually learning the tech side of starting a YouTube channel, and then how she was actually able to set up her YouTube channel, get things started with it, and everything that she's learned along the way. So Berenice has a very, very touching story and just a lovely way of sharing her yoga and her yoga business. So I know you're going to love this episode. I absolutely loved recording with her, and I'm so excited for you to listen. Okay, here it is. Welcome to the podcast today, Berenice. I'm really excited to have you here with me.
Thank you, Amanda.
And where are you joining me from?
I am currently in south of France, where I am born and raised.
Amazing. I've only been to the south of France one time, but it was amazing. I would love to go back.
Yeah, you should come over again. And, now we can travel a bit more and definitely pass by and say hi.
Yes, absolutely. I would love that. Hopefully someday soon. And I would love to hear a little bit about how you first got into yoga and just kind of what inspired you to become a yoga teacher.
So it's a very funny story because the first time I stepped my toes on the yoga mat, I promised myself I would never come back to a yoga class. So at that time, I was living and working in Sweden because I've lived almost 8 years abroad. And I was working in the corporate world, working with software, so in front of my screen all day long. And I was really stressed out. I was also suffering from anxiety, PTSD, but I didn't know at that time. And I was also recovering from the last bits of eating disorders that I had for a decade. And what happened is that I was overexercising, which I knew was an issue to replace eating disorders, sort of. So I told myself that I had to change my habits if I wanted to change my life, right? I decided to stop running. I was a runner and I was running every day. And then I told myself, okay, this is wrong. Like it's not right if you're running all the time like this. It means that you're hiding something and you're running away from something. So I stopped running. And, when you stop something that you love so much that you use to numb your issues, your emotions, and so on. I felt like a smoker quitting smoking. I was very restless. I had all those emotions coming up. And one of my colleagues told me, why don't you try yoga? And I almost laughed. I said, no, yoga is for lazy people. It's not even sporty. You don't even sweat. So that was my first opinion of yoga. And yet I went to my first yoga class at the gym club. And it was something called Medi Yoga. And it was an hour and a half of very slow, gentle yoga, almost meditative movements. And for someone who was initially restless and overwhelmed with emotions and dynamic, it was like terrible. I felt I was dying in the class. And it was funny because I had this thoughts, the restless mind talking to you nonstop. I call it the monkey mind, telling me like, oh my God, just leave now, just one more pose, just to respect the teacher, and then off you go. And when I wanted to leave, the teacher said something like, maybe your mind is telling you that you're not in the right place, that it's time for you to leave. And maybe actually it's time for you to stay. And I freaked out. I told myself, oh my God, is she a mind reader or what? So I stayed. And funny enough is that something drew me back on the yoga mat. I don't know what, I really feel that all of us have this inner wisdom, this inner light within ourselves that really attract us to our call, to our passion in life. And that's what happened for me with yoga. So I just kept coming back and I started to try different types of yoga, going to the studio almost every day and just loving it. And I felt so much better with yoga.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And I can relate to so many parts of your story, like coming to yoga and just feeling like it was pretty boring and not for me. And then, over time, kind of finding like it was this place that I could sort of find myself. And it took a number of years of practicing on and off before I feel like I kind of got it, I guess you could say, or was like getting something out of it that was a little bit more than just like the physical side of things. So it's always really cool to hear those stories from other people.
Yeah, totally. And I feel there is a huge portion of people coming to yoga for the physical, and we stay for the rest. So it's very funny. And you asked me about how I became a yoga teacher. So after practicing for a while, I just felt so many things were shifting in my life, and I couldn't explain why. I had a lot of issues to let go, to surrender, as we say. There was a big part of controlling and saying like, no, it's good. I keep on doing things with my life. It's fine like this, even though I was just literally surviving and I was really depressed. I was not happy with my life at that time. And yoga just unveiled all of that. And I was praying for 3 months, literally, the spiritual aspect also grew. So I was believing in the universe or God or whatever you want to call it. And I was praying like, please, just something has to change. And I don't know what. So can you help me? Can you send me a sign? And unfortunately / fortunately, 3 months after, the startup I worked for went bankrupt, and I was one of the last employed. So I was one of the first to leave. And that was a wake-up call for me, just, to change my life. And I was also tired of living in Sweden. So I decided to leave Sweden, to quit and to sell everything. But I didn't really know what to do. So one day I just randomly talked about it with my yoga teacher, my dear favorite first yoga teacher, Sophia, and I told her the situation. And she just advised me like, why don't you go to India to do a yoga teacher training course? And my first answer was like, nope. I'm not a yoga teacher. I don't want to go to India, and all the cliches about India being dangerous as a young woman traveling, etc. And she planted the seed because 1 week after I was just Googling like a mad person, everything about India and yoga teacher training courses. And I went to India. The first idea was really to deepen my practice and to discover where yoga was from and the tradition and living in an ashram. But I had no intention to become a yoga teacher. I thought after my yoga teacher training course that I would go back, quote unquote, to my normal life. And this never happened. So that's my journey.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And what happened once you actually took the teacher training?
So many things. There was a lot of resistance because my mind is initially very resistant and attached to what it knows, what it's used to, and it doesn't want to change, right? So very primitive, very reptilian, like most of us. And India was just a big shift in perception of life. I also met so many wonderful people who were so open about life, and telling me like, yeah, there are different phases in life and not knowing is okay. I think my issue in India is that I used to be the person who handled everything, who had it all figured out, who had the perfect life on the outside, the career, the place, the physique, whatever you imagine having when you're 25 years old. And suddenly I just said, I want to change my life. And for the first time, when people asked me, what are you going to do? I didn't have the perfect plan. And that scared me so much. So I was really anxious. And India just opened my eyes to so many things, to yoga, a deeper practice, but it's not only physical, this reconnection to yourself. And also, I started to be less anxious about the fact of not knowing, of coming back to Europe and not being sure of what I wanted. More acceptance toward myself, definitely much more compassion. And I remember my mom asked me after 1 week in India, how is it going? How do you feel? And I wrote her, Mom, it's been a week. I wake up smiling, and this has not happened for 3 years at least. And that was a blessing for me.
Yeah, that's incredible to hear. And that just takes me back to my own yoga teacher training experience. And I love hearing that. And so you finished your training. Did you come back to Europe and start teaching right away? Or what did your career look like?
So I was in India for 1 month in Rishikesh, and I thought I would travel around, visit a bit. And actually, Rishikesh is so full of yogic knowledge and Ayurveda and meditation that I decided to prolong it a bit. I enrolled for 200 hours in Ayurveda, which is like the cuisine of yoga, to learn more about medicine and the health aspect of yoga. I came back to Europe for Christmas because I knew that if I would not come back, being 25 years old, my family would just freak out. And probably my parents would have gone to India to bring me back by themselves. So I went back for Christmas and I just announced everyone that I would go back to India for a couple of months just to learn more and to really soak in the culture and traditions. So I went back, I completed a meditation teacher training course, and I stayed a bit just, like to experience Vipassana meditation, to be on my own, to journal and figure out what I wanted when I came back. I came back in March 2018. And after that, everyone expected me, to look for a job. And I really started to do it a bit. But the more I applied for jobs and started to have interviews, the worse I felt. I had this gut feeling telling me like, not the right direction. And I'm so grateful I had this gut feeling and that I followed it. So in the meantime, I started to read more about yoga therapy because for me, yoga was much more than yoga and the physical practice. It was definitely a huge stepping stone in my recovery from eating disorders. And that's what I wanted to bring to people on the yoga mat. This not necessarily recovery, because you cannot say you heal people or fix people, but this feeling of you can get better, you can self-regulate, and there's a way out of it with yoga and other tools. And that's what I wanted to do. So spring 2018, I just started to Google yoga therapy and I discovered this amazing yoga therapy training in London. I enrolled and I started in 2019, and I'm about to graduate in October this year. So that's been a wonderful journey and I'm so happy I did it.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. It sounds like you've done a lot of learning and growing and studying over the last couple of years. And I can definitely relate to the feeling of, you know, the expectation that people have of like, oh, you're going to get a job now, right? Like you've done your little adventure, you've like had your time, and like now you're going to get a job. And then when you're like, well, actually, I'm taking like a totally different path, it can be kind of surprising for some people. But it sounds like you have done such an amazing job of just like following, the little guidances that you've had as to where you wanted to go and what you wanted to learn and that type of thing.
Yeah, and it's really my surrendering journey. It's coming as someone very controlling and fixing and planning everything. I really had to let go, and this gut feeling, if I don't listen to it, I feel really bad. I have like little signals, my body telling me like, hey, you're not going in the right direction. So I can have eczema, I can have eating disorders patterns coming back, just popping up and being like, hey, we're back, something is not right. So it's really a matter of listening to yourself. And I feel yoga is what helps me daily to be connected to this gut feeling and to listen to it and to follow it without anxiety and just trusting the process. So yoga therapy. And in the meantime, I was also teaching.
Yeah, amazing. And so were you teaching group classes, I guess, like when you started your yoga therapy program and like prior to the pandemic?
Yes, I was teaching group classes. And, I think I started like most of us yoga teachers, like giving free classes in the park. And it was fun. I remember I was just taking over classes during summer for one of my best friends now. She's also a yoga teacher, and that's how I started. And then I moved to London. So I was working in some studios and doing some private classes, but also trying to implement yoga in unexpected places. So I taught sometimes classes in hairdressers or, like these funny avenues I organized. But I realized that traveling, commuting took a lot of time, especially in such a big city as London. And I didn't like working in studios. I felt like it was not myself somehow, like sometimes you teach a certain way and they ask you to change a bit, to be more dynamic, to go faster. And I was not on that wave. So then pandemic happened and I just taught online, and I'm doing more and more private one-on-one because that's what I really love. And that's why also we're taught in yoga therapy. And I launched my YouTube channel because, like I talked about it with my boyfriend, and I told him, how am I going to share yoga now when people really need it? And he's very techy and very helpful and supportive of my journey. So he was like, let's get you on YouTube. Let's do it. So he really helped me to overcome all these fears and, doubts. Oh my God, how is it going to be on YouTube? And also this, I remember my first thought was, who am I to be on YouTube? Do you think I'm Adrienne or what? So that was really funny. And so YouTube, and yes, more and more one-on-one. And I'm really moving towards niching down to people suffering and struggling with anxiety and stress to just help them to overcome this and just to have a better life.
Amazing. There's so much good stuff in there. I want to talk a little bit about, the transition with the pandemic, because I think it was, a big change for all of us at that point, trying to figure out how to go online and like how permanent do we make these things, et cetera, because nobody really knew like how long this thing was going to last. I don't think most of us expected that it was going to be, 15, 16 months before we'd be starting to reopen and whatnot. So were you teaching, like, did your online teaching start with the studios that you've been working for, like teaching those classes online, or how did things look for you?
I had my private groups and I was not working for a studio anymore. And also because in November 2019, I lost my 22-year-old brother in a motorcycle accident. So that just, like I took some time off to just process the thing because it was huge. So I taught less and I had my regular groups. I was, renting a room in a studio. So when the pandemic happened, I just told them like, hey, listen, we can do that on Zoom. And we're in France, so people are not really into, like online things and not really techy. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying all French people are like this, but most of us, we tend to be a bit resistant to these kind of things. So what happened is that most of my students were like, no, we're sorry, but we really like your presence in person and it's not working for us online. So I didn't I didn't continue with my online classes with my groups. So I was full on YouTube, and I also started to write a book because I just had always wanted to write a book, and this was the perfect time. And I also started to do more and more case studies for yoga therapy. So for me, there was a shift in the way I was working. I really like to work one-on-one, I realized. And also I just love the fact that you can connect with anyone in the world with Zoom or just working online. And my partner is also working online. And the big dream is just to both work online so that we can travel and be able to be anywhere in the world and just continue with our passions. So that's the goal right now.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. And I'm really sorry to hear about your brother. I can imagine that that would have been really hard to go through. And then following that with this like gigantic global event. So I think it definitely makes sense, to take some space from work. And it sounds like you were able to transition, really well and just kind of listen to your students and listen to what you were excited about and what you were interested in to kind of find this route in the online space.
Yeah, it's there's some resistance in the start because like all these thoughts, oh, I'm not techy enough, and so many out there are already doing it. How people are going to find me, etc. But I think that you know scarcity versus abundance. We're 7 billion people, and there's so much going on online, so many teachers and so many great teachers and so many people who can benefit from yoga that everyone listening who's hesitating or doubting, can I do it? Well, just go for it. Take baby steps every day, learn a bit. Everything is online on YouTube, and some people are giving master classes helping you to take this big leap. So yeah, I think just as a yoga teacher, do what feels good for you. I was talking about it with a friend, and she told me how excited she was to go face to face, to find her groups again and so on. And I mean, I'm excited to see my group again, but I don't feel I want to teach face to face as much as I did in the past, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I feel like we're at this sort of like interesting point right now. And obviously, it's kind of just different depending on where you are located in the world. But it's like, as things are opening up and people are starting to like shift their routines again, it's sort of like figuring out, some people are like itching to get back to in person only. And they're so over like the tech side of things and they're ready to move on. And then other people, like you just mentioned, are like, this gives me a lot of freedom to a different type of lifestyle. I want to continue building this way. And I think there's enough clients for both. Like, I think there's clients that are like, practicing yoga online is awesome. I can practice from my house in my pajamas, pretty much any time of day with my favorite teachers. That's amazing. And then there's other people that are like, I can't practice at home. I can't wait to be in person. So I feel like there's a lot of kind of opportunity that's happening and big shifts that are happening as we're sort of I guess like getting into this reopening and also kind of like this new world that we're living in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people got used to more and more being online and having classes online. So yeah, there's more open-mindedness about that right now.
For sure. Yeah, I work with two primary yoga studios, one in the US and one in Canada. And the one in Canada has had to be a lot more locked down just because Canada has been quite strict on rules and regulations and been quite locked down over the last like 6 to 9 months. And one thing we're finding is like our early morning classes, which are at 6:30 in the morning. It's like even when we can have people in the studio, like they're just so poorly attended in person. I think all these people are like, I can roll out of bed, I can make coffee, I can practice in my pajamas. I don't have to leave the house. Like, why would I ever come to the studio again for this class?
Yeah, absolutely. A great friend of mine, she's called Abigail, and she's giving this PJ's morning yoga in Paris, and she does it online. And it's so funny because she has so many people attending, and same, everyone is in pajamas, very chill, and just rolling out of bed and doing it. And I think that's how it should be. Why, if you have a very busy life and you have, your family, your job, your self-care to take care of, and you cannot fit yoga into your schedule, but if you can find one early morning yoga class of 20-30 minutes, that's enough. Just make it, and that's awesome. It can have very like many benefits.
For sure. Yeah, I think too, like so many people are still working from home that it's like, nice to be able to just roll out of bed and do your yoga. And especially if you have like kids or something like that, you don't have to stress about childcare or whatnot. You can just do everything from home, which makes it a lot easier. So, I mean, I don't love most things about what's happened over the last year, but I think it has been, a little bit of a silver lining for the yoga industry to kind of discover these possibilities of how we can offer yoga to our students and really normalizing it for our students.
Absolutely. And what I've realized also is the community that you create. People are still, connecting, even though it's online, it's behind a screen. Several classes I gave to my group, even though many of them said, "Oh, the online space is not for me." At the end of the class, we talked a bit and just asking each other, "How are you doing? How are you coping? Do you need help, or do you want to be in touch sometimes?" They told me like it felt so good just to talk. It felt almost as being back in the studio. So even though we're online and we're behind the screen, I think there's opportunities also to recreate this atmosphere of community and connection.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's just like thinking about what you want as a consumer. And I think something as little as, opening your Zoom room a couple minutes early and saying hello to people as they come in and ask them how their day is. And, then maybe giving them a couple minutes to chat at the end, that's stuff that really makes people feel connected when they are in person at a studio or in a park or wherever they're practicing. And I think we can replicate that to a good degree online. Of course, it's not the same as being in person, but I think you can get that online, which is pretty impactful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hey everyone, we're just taking a quick break from the podcast to talk about Offering Tree. I wanted to remind you about the special discount you can get with Offering Tree. I love telling yoga teachers about Offering Tree because not only is it your one-stop shop for all things that you need in your yoga business, but it is also easy to use, it's affordable, and it's truly an amazing company to work with. Offering Tree lets you sell courses, run classes, manage memberships, and so much more with just one account. That's right, just one login for all those parts of your business. One of the best parts about Offering Tree is their online store. You can sell digital content like yoga videos, challenges, and courses right from your website. If you're teaching yoga classes and looking to level up, selling digital content is the next step to growing your business. Over the last year, we've seen so much pivot and change happen in the yoga industry, and having your own unique yoga business where you offer your students different course material can be so beneficial in creating a sustainable business with diversified income. And while there's many different platforms that you can create courses on these days, Offering Tree's course tools are easy to use and they're really affordable. And if you have a website you already like, you can still use Offering Tree. But there's one other thing I want to tell you about Offering Tree that makes all the difference in the world to me and probably to you too. They're a company that truly cares about yoga teachers and the wellness industry overall. I chose to partner with Offering Tree because I love the product and I love the people. Whenever yoga teachers have a suggestion for something that they need out of the platform, they can reach out directly to the people at Offering Tree and they're actually heard. So much of the development that Offering Tree has gone through over the last year has been because of yoga teachers like yourself. So if you're looking to save time, energy, and money in your yoga business, Offering Tree is hands down the software for you. Go to offeringtree.com/MBM to learn more and get your discount. Okay, let's get back to the episode. And so one thing you mentioned a little earlier that I wanted to touch on was creating this YouTube channel and having this I'm not yoga with Adrienne, which I'm sure many, many yoga teachers out there can relate to, myself included. When I first started making yoga videos, I had the exact same thought, like, I'm not yoga with Adrienne. Should I even bother? But I think it's really cool. Like you've been quite successful with your YouTube channel and your videos are amazing. I'd love to dive into a little bit of just, what it was like actually creating the YouTube channel. And maybe we can start with just getting over this mental hump of like, I'm not yoga with Adrienne. Like, who's going to watch my videos?
Well, thank you, Amanda, for your lovely feedback. I'm not yoga with Adrienne. It's so funny because I think it's just the comparison, which is like killing us, and not only as yoga teacher, but all of us in life. And I don't remember who said something like comparison is the killer of joy, and that's true. So Yeah, I was joking because, as I told you, my mind is really resistant, and often the first answer is nope. So when my partner said, "Yeah, what about like going on YouTube?" I was like, no." And I gave him all the excuses, of course. And then he looked at me and he was like, "Wow, many excuses, a lot of resistance," and we just laughed together. So then it's about believing that even though I'm not yoga with Adrienne and I love her, she's just amazing. I think she's done a wonderful job to bringing yoga to everyone, especially being one of the first to do that. So how did that start? Yeah, I just did it. I just pressed the record button and it felt awkward. It felt weird. And as a non-native English speaker, there was all this thing also like, oh my God, my French accent, are people going to understand me? So a lot of monkey mind going on. And it's just proving the monkey mind wrong and doing it again and again. And at one point, after editing many videos and hating to do it because you see yourself, you hear yourself, and you're like, oh, is it me? Oh my God, so much of me. I'm just tired of myself now. At one point, I just realized, like, hey, listen, who's talking right now? Is it the ego or the heart? Are you doing it for yourself or for others? And when I started to see the camera as someone in front of me, whenever now I'm looking into the camera, it's as if I had someone in the room, and I was talking to this person. So when I really visualize who am I doing it for and what benefits they might get from the class or not, well, that's how it rolls. And I love doing it now. I'm still, like uploading videos frequently. I'm considering doing a YouTube channel in France as well. So yeah, it's there and it will be there for a little bit more. I don't know how long. I just love it. The consistency, the feedback, and just creating this community online. It's very important.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that you were able to just kind of recognize, okay, I'm not yoga with Adrienne, but that's actually like a beautiful thing, right? Like not everyone's looking to practice with yoga with Adrienne. Lots of people are looking for, other people to practice with, yourself included, and then just sitting down and actually doing it. And you mentioned before that your boyfriend helped you with kind of the tech side. Can you walk me through a little bit of like your tech setup and what you use to make your videos look and sound great?
Yeah, so he's a perfectionist. He's really into watching YouTube and he sees all details. He's very detail oriented. So when I'm more into the yoga aspect, like, oh yeah, what about having this color in the background? He's more like, hey, listen, this angle needs to be like this. And, like your mat is not straight here and the light and the sound. So he was the one like really bringing the quality of the videos so high. I am using a Sony Alpha. Oh my God, I don't, yeah, 6400. So that's a really good camera. I mean, that was at least 2 years ago. And I'm using a microphone. Can I name brands, by the way, or is it not so good?
Yeah, of course. No, you can totally name them.
All right, I'm not an affiliate. Huh? So I'm using a Rode microphone and they're really good, very handy to use. And you just like put them on your shirt and make sure that it doesn't bump into you or moving too much when you're moving, but otherwise it's a really good quality. And what else? Lights. I realize it's really important and not to have like an overload of light. So maybe try to have the blind shut and some good source of light coming onto you. And then that's pretty much it. To have a clear space. Angle, then it really depends on the space you have, on the like size of the room. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all. And editing, I'm using a professional editing software, so it took quite a bit of time to learn. And also I was very frustrated. I was just saying, can't I use a simpler one? And actually, it took maybe 3 days to really nail everything. And now I'm so happy because it goes fast and it's a wonderful software. So yeah, editing is important. So I would say for anyone wanting to try to go online for videos, just make sure that the sound quality is good, because often we give more importance to the picture and how it looks like. But I think that most people watching, if the quality of the sound is crap, if they cannot hear properly, if it's unpleasant, they will just stop. And you know how much people just switch, like quickly. If the first 3 seconds it's not catchy, they don't like it, they will just change. So yeah, sound and being yourself.
Yes, for sure. That's a great tip. But yeah, I completely agree on the sound. I think that making sure that people can actually hear you is so important. Obviously, being seen, being like a well lit space where your whole body can be seen is important also. But yeah, if people can't hear you, they're going to switch off the video. So I love the recommendations that you gave, and can definitely second the microphone recommendation. That's the same microphone that so many yoga teachers I know are using, and the studios that I work with use the same one as well, and have had
Mm.
really good success with it. So that's a great one. And then I wanted to ask you about like the space. Like, did you just happen to live in like a house or an apartment that had a good space, or how did you kind of make that work for you?
So when the pandemic hit, I moved in with my partner, and he was so adorable. He organized the guest room just for me to be the studio. So when I moved in, he was like, "Hey, this is your studio. If you want to film, it's time." And it was not a big room. I would say it was maybe 12 square meters, and it's yeah, meters. So sorry about the oh the how do you say that again? Well, meters, miles, etc. So 12 square meters, not necessarily big. So I had a wider angle for the camera. And then we moved into another place, which has a huge living room. And we're not really into watching TV and having a sofa and so on. So that was my studio. And yeah, I'm very grateful that we could have this space for me. It was really a luck, because I know that some people, some teachers, maybe they're sharing flats with someone and it's not easy to have an empty space. So yeah, I was very blessed with great places to do it.
For sure. Absolutely. I think I'm not filming videos anymore and haven't been for probably a year or so, but I was doing it while I was traveling around. And sometimes it was just so hard with the spaces that I was in. I think I've got one really crappy video where you can see like our laundry hanging in the background because there was just like, no other spaces for me to film in. And so, I'm more about like just doing things and putting them out there than being super perfect with it. But I think it's always funny to look back and be like, that's not very good.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also the thing, like, it's the balance between doing it perfectly and just doing it. Because if you wait for things to be too perfect, sometimes you will never do it. And at the same time, well, just try to upgrade, if you can. Well, for example, remove the laundry and then just do it. But yeah, for anyone starting, just, yeah, go for it. Try to invest a bit if you have the money, and put your heart, your joy into it, and just do it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned earlier that you are moving into like the niche of yoga therapy and specifically working with people who have, anxiety, PTSD, depression, that type of thing. With your
Yes.
YouTube channel, are you focusing on that niche or do you have a different niche with your YouTube channel?
My YouTube channel is Yoga for Beginners, because I realized I really liked to go slow, to give many cues, details, and also I speak slowly and I have a soft voice. So some people were like, "Oh, it's too slow," and it's not energy morning at all. So the first feedback were really useful actually, because I was like, "All right, maybe beginners are more for me and I can really help them." So I'm focusing on beginners, and I haven't really tried yoga therapist videos, also because I mean, I know that yoga can really bring healing to people, but I don't want to say that it's yoga therapy in a video. Although I've made some videos, like there was a very powerful one, and I also got a comment this morning again. Well, as I mentioned, my brother passed away, and yoga was really my safe space where I could just let go of emotions and process things. And a year after, I just made a video about yoga, how yoga can help grief. So I just made a sequence, and just to help people to have this space and compassion for themselves for whatever arises, if it's tears, anger. So it's a very gentle practice, and I'm trying to go more into this kind of videos, like more mindfulness, feeling what's going on in your body. Although for beginners, that's a bit awkward. So just trying things now, seeing how it works, how it is received, and then I would just tweak it and continue producing content based on what people like on YouTube. Otherwise, I'd love to dig more into yoga therapy on YouTube. Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love that you've created videos so far for beginners and are kind of branching into these other areas now. And I think it's a great idea to just create videos on things that you're excited and passionate about and that are really helping you in your own life, and then seeing, how they're received with your audience. I think that's one of the best ways to kind of figure out, what people want and that type of thing, especially when you're in this environment where you don't necessarily get to have this like face-to-face one-on-one conversation with people. Like it is kind of, when you're creating videos on something like YouTube, it's like you're kind of relying on somebody commenting or sending you a message to know what they're actually thinking. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. And also, like, not everyone can go to a counselor, and not everyone can talk openly about grief or other things, So, yeah, I would say it's great just to know that I was able to help someone and bring some comfort with just one video. So, that makes my day, and that's what keeps me going and pushing forward, because yeah, I know that if at least one person like found it helpful and beneficial, then that's it. That's all I wanted to know.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. And so I'd love to hear a couple of your top business lessons that you've learned, throughout your whole yoga career. So that could be from being a new yoga teacher, teaching in studios and other spaces, to pivoting online, to building out your YouTube channel, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes. So yeah, I started really unprofessionally, I mean, you get out of your yoga teacher training course, and then you start teaching, but you don't know all the behind the scenes things, such as getting an accountant and paying your taxes and insurance and so on. So I discovered that, and I was really the type of like, yeah, let's teach and we'll do this later, which is not good. So I would recommend, yeah, if I started again, I would just get help from someone, like meeting a professional in the industry and just to ask questions or get more knowledgeable. Teaching for studios, honestly, it felt like going back to work, because I had to, well, of course, I had a timetable, but it felt like I had to fill tasks and to be a certain way, and yeah, to get this many people in the classroom. So I didn't really enjoy it at all. But one more time, it's about me. It's how I felt. It's not necessarily the same for all yoga teachers. So I really prefer to teach myself. Private is what works the best for me. And currently, because I want to learn more and I really want to develop my business online, I'm working with Emily Cecil. You got her on the podcast here, I remember.
Yeah. Emily's amazing.
Yeah, I love her. So I'm going to start with working with her in July, just to help me with the behind the scene, the social media marketing, and also, like what sort of business model do I want to build for yoga, especially online.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that it is like, if you've been doing this for a little bit and you're kind of like, okay, I really want to, build a career out of this, I think that hiring somebody who can help you, like Emily, is a really amazing option. I mean, that's something that I did when I was first starting out working for myself. I had like no idea how to create like a proper schedule for myself or actually hold myself accountable to working on projects. I'd always, just been in school or working for somebody else, and hiring a business coach was like one of the best things I did for myself.
Yeah, and it's investing in yourself and in your business. And when you get a clear vision on what you want to do, they can really help you on the way. Because I feel like being a yoga teacher, sometimes you can feel a bit lost. And there also, like, the online world is so full of informations, and you see so many things. Like, yeah, like earn 5K in 1 month, in less than 10 days. And you see all of that and videos on YouTube. So sometimes you just feel overwhelmed and lost, and you feel like, oh my God, who should I listen to? What should I watch? And it's also time consuming to look for reliable, real information. So investing in a coach or a program to help you is definitely a great investment if you can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you brought up a good point too. Like the online world is very busy and overwhelming. And I feel like there's a lot of like shoulds on the internet. Like if you go on Instagram or Facebook, like everyone's advertising to you, like, you should be doing this. Like if you're not doing this in your business, you're not going to be successful in 2021. Like you should do this, blah, blah, blah. And I just, I mean, I find that like completely overwhelming. And I know the strategies that they're using in sales to, get people in their programs and stuff like that. And I don't think that selling your stuff is bad. That's not what I'm saying at all. I think it just can be very overwhelming as we're kind of getting started to figure out like, what is the should that we actually should follow? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And also one thing that I'm learning, it's that, numbers are just vanity, because you can have like a huge community of 10,000 followers on Instagram or whatever, but if they don't buy your services, then what's the use? What's the use of you spending maybe 10 hours every week on your posting, on your scheduling, stories, etc. So yeah, it's really, what is your business model? How do you imagine it, and working for it and taking baby steps, and we all start from zero. That's what I love, because, well, you started with no one listening to your podcast, Amanda, and I started with no one watching my videos. So, well, we're all in this. We know what it is to start, and just trusting the process, going for it, and keeping your vision in mind and doing with your heart.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that that's a great reminder. And I think like anytime we start something new, we kind of start from scratch again. Like, and it is, I remember the days of like, putting out the podcast and, I'd be like, ooh, 10 people listened today. And then, oh, like 15 people listened today. And, it's definitely like, you're kind of like, who are these people? I don't even know this many people. So it is cool to watch something that you've built, like grow and grow and see that people are resonating with it.
Yeah, and it's also celebrating the mini victories on the way, like, yes, 10 people watched my video. Hoo-hoo, awesome. Well, I got a great comment today. So yeah, it's really cheering yourself up on the journey, because you're your best cheerleader, and don't expect other people to cheer you. So yeah, do it for yourself, be happy no matter how small the victory is, and just keep going.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. I have a friend who has a signature course that she launches a couple times a year, and she just did a launch with it. And I was asking her how it went, and she's like, it wasn't like the best launch. Like I got, 6 people in it. She's like, but I'm happy because 6 is better than 0. And I think it's great to acknowledge like, okay, 6 wasn't like, my ideal goal that I was going for, but 6 is 6 more than 0. And I think that that's a great kind of mindset to have of like, it could have been better for sure. I can learn things from it, but it could have been worse.
Yeah, absolutely. I have another friend who gave a masterclass and no one enrolled for it. And he told us, like, yeah, I still did it. I recorded myself, I prepared, and I just did it. And you never know how it can serve in the future, and just to commit to do it and doing it anyway. So yeah, just do it. Like the slogan.
I love it. Amazing. Well, it's been so great to connect with you today, Berenice. I'm wondering if you can share with myself and listeners where people can go to find you, where they can find your YouTube channel and all of that good stuff.
Yes, so you can find me on YouTube at Berenice Miles. So it's Berenice, and Miles, Miles. That's not my real family name. It's my American name, because my family name is too French for people to remember and pronounce. So otherwise, you can find me on Instagram, even though I'm not really active at the moment, but still, I am Berenice Miles, so same as YouTube, and also on Facebook. And I'm currently creating my community on Facebook, so working on that at the moment.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today and for having this conversation with me.
Thank you so much for having me, Amanda. It's a pleasure. And thank you all for listening today.
All right, friends, I hope that you enjoyed that episode of the podcast with Berenice Miles. Make sure you go check out her YouTube channel and everything that she's up to. And one of the things that we touched on in this episode, but didn't have a ton of time to dive into in depth, was the fact that she is currently writing a book. So I picked Berenice's brain on how she's actually been getting that done, what it was like crowdfunding the book, how that went, and all the things she's learned through the process of writing the book on MBM Behind the Scenes. So we talk about her top tips for if you want to get started, what she's learned, and so much more. And you can get access to that at patreon.com/MBM Yoga. And of course, when you sign up, you get access to all the other episodes. We've been doing this for about a year now, so there are a ton of episodes available for you on all sorts of topics. So once again, that's patreon.com/MBM Yoga. I can't wait to see you behind the scenes. And just before we go, I just want to give a little thank you and a shout out to our sponsor, Offering Tree. To start spending more time with students and less time with software, head on over to offeringtree.com/MBOM to get an exclusive discount. And thank you for listening to this episode of the show. I'm so appreciative and grateful for you listening and supporting the show. All right, that's all from me. I'll see you next week. Bye for now. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of the podcast. To find links, notes, resources, and everything mentioned in today and all episodes of the show, you can head on over to mbomyoga.com. You can find the podcast and myself on Facebook and social media at Mastering the Business of Yoga. And I would love for you to join the private Facebook community, Yoga Business Badasses. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please make sure you reach out to me at info@mbomyoga.com. And last of all, if you enjoyed this episode of the show, please make sure you hit subscribe and leave a review for the podcast. It would mean the world. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Namaste.